Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast where we look at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chenard. I'm here with Glen Willis and Tyler Jones, and we're recording in the evening after Jalen Johnson signed a contract extension. And any thoughts on the deal?
I thought it was fair for both sides. You know, Jalen's really only had one full year of like starter level minutes, so that's not the biggest sample to base a long term contract on. But I thought he played well last year and showed a lot in these few games in the preseason. So, happy for Jalen to get real money there, and I think the Hawks did well to kind of get him at a price that I think they'll get plenty of value in return.
No, I mean it's probably as high as the Hawks were going to go. Um, I don't, you know, it's not that he can't be better than this or that he couldn't, make more than this, but just based on his prior precedent, I don't see how the Hawks could justify paying him more than starter caliber money because that's really on an NBA floor. That's all he's shown. Now he's shown flashes of greater than just being a good starter, which is a $30+ million basketball player now. So Um, just seems like fair market value in the present, but in the future, if he becomes a better basketball player than what he is right now, it could end up being a great deal.
Yeah, I thought it was so it's a 5 year, $150 million extension, a flat 30 million a year, exactly the same all 5 years. And I thought it was fitting that on the same day, Aaron Gordon signed for 30 million, which, to me, like as Glenn mentioned, we don't really know what trajectory his career is going to take. Like I still feel like there are a lot of outcomes, but like, if he stays healthy, sort of big, athletic, productive, uh, power forward is in play, and it sort of seems like I don't know like again with the big caveat of health. Like if he's healthy, he's going to be in that Aaron Gordon range, like pretty solidly. Like there's still some outcomes above that for him, but that's about where he's going to be, and they're paying him, what Aaron Gordon's about to make. But again, that's more current term. Like when you get to the end of his deal, like 30 million a year at the end of his deal is going to be practically a bargain when you look at what the cap is going to be in those years.
Exactly, and that's why it's like, you know, I think the fifth year was pretty good value for both sides. Jalen, somebody who, I mean, this is the type of deal you take. If Jalen was a higher draft pick, one, he'd have been playing a lot more his rookie and sophomore year, so then he'd be making a lot more money. But because he was a late, this is why your draft position just matters so much. We saw this with John Collins as well. It's like, you know, they're not, teams now, especially in the second apron era, they're just not going to go above and beyond, even if they believe you're a higher caliber player. Because I think the Hawks believe he's, um, they don't give him 5 years being the 20th overall pick if they think he's just Aaron Gordon. Not to say that that's not a good outcome for him, but I think they probably see higher tier player, and that's why they were like, okay, let's lock in for life changing money for Jalen. Certify him as one of our core pieces of the future, alongside Reese Shea and hopefully Trey Young. We'll see after the season, but it's just it's a I to me personally, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't find it that surprising or that interesting. The Hawks were always going to re-sign Jalen to a contract extension. It
Right.
just, did it happen now or did it happen next summer? Like
Exactly.
that's where it's based on everything we've heard inside and outside the organization. The Hawks are super committed to Jalen Johnson at the moment. Uh, so like, it's not a surprise, but it's probably nice for Jalen and his family to be like, hey, I'm a $150 million player, and like, it's the first step towards future aspirations for him.
Yeah, and I mean the Aaron Gordon comp from an overall value, it kind of makes sense. They're different players, of course, right? I don't think Jalen will ever be the defender Gordon is. Gordon's one of the, has been the last 3 or 4 years one of the best defensive front court players in the league. You know, he has the tools. I mean, I guess I don't want to say it's completely out of his
Yeah,
reach.
I
He's
was
still
gonna say
young.
because you look at like
I
what
I
was Aaron
I don't
Gordon as a
know,
defender
man.
at age 22? Like,
Yeah, no. I think Jalen defensively is right up there with anybody in the league. It's just a matter of consistent consistency. But like his peak is up there with anybody. I put him up there with anybody defensively. He rates like because he just does the most important things. He gets the ball. Like he gets steals, he gets rebounds, and guys can't ISO. Like basketball players cannot score on him in ISO situations. So he's like an elite switch option as well. Like there's just his issues have been like the issues of a young player who hasn't played that much in the league. But like talent wise, I don't want to put Jalen in any type of what he can and cannot do because quite frankly, athletically, he's at the top 1% of anybody in this league right now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he definitely has the kind of athleticism that if he can get the mental side of it, and get to your point, that could like be very technique consistent. Like that's his technique kind of comes and goes, and he's young. Like that's exactly the reason why he's still relatively inexperienced. But the technique kind of comes and goes at times, in the finer areas of kind of technique and things like that. But I mean, you're right. He has the tools to totally like kind of put a real kind of package together. So and he's young. So I never want to say something is out of reach at all. It's just that I mean, Gordon has been a phenomenal defender. Offensively, I think he's going to produce way more value than Gordon. I mean, he can handle, he can pass, he can self-create. Those are things that Gordon has never been able to do, right? And so on the offensive end, to me, it's not even a comparison. We'll see if the ball handling and self-creation continues to, get elevated and go to a higher and higher level. But I think the offense comparison is really kind of unfair to Jalen, and I'd love to see him kind of really figure it all out on the defensive end, sooner than later, because that would be really meaningful for him and the Hawks.
I maybe this is a segue because to what else I wanted to talk about, but like I feel like his archetype is becoming more valuable in the league. If you when you start to look at teams like Oklahoma City, who they just played, if you have to deal with these five out teams, to have a premium rebounder who's not even one of your centers is just super important. Like to be able to get defensive rebounds regardless of really who you put out there at center. And that gives you the flexibility to play, whether it's a stretchy center or a quick athletic center. You get the versatility that you need to be able to deal with some of these Bostons and Oklahoma cities that were, the top teams in each of their conference that are just trying to pull you apart from the inside out when they're running their offense. And like just to have that kind of player on the floor out there with them, I just think that's super valuable to have that kind of athleticism that really sort of fills a lot of holes when you're getting picked apart.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, he has a lot of skill versatility, and that is super helpful at the position he plays, and that's a real differentiator for the Hawks that have all of that versatility of skill, in a guy who plays full time at the four. That's unusual.
What did you think about the Miami game? I don't know if you want to start with how they dealt with Oklahoma City or what you saw from Onyeka and his return from injury. But we haven't done a pod since before the Miami and Oklahoma City game, so I was wondering what you thought of that.
I mean, I thought I mean I think they played Philly, Oklahoma City, Miami, and I think it's good that they played three pretty high level defenses, and for the most part, all three teams played their regular guys, and I thought that's why some turnovers kind of showed up in those games, and there were stretches where they had a little harder time kind of finding some offensive rhythm. They kept working through it, and things like that. And so while I mean some parts of those games weren't super pretty, I thought they benefited from playing teams that really were playing defense. And I feel like if you don't get that opportunity in the preseason, you go into game one having not really been tested by a high level defense, and they've gotten three of those in a row. And like I said, I think that's gonna help them. Onyeka, I mean, I think Onyeka looked fine. I'm not surprised he didn't play any more than he did. I'm still confused at like I won't say confused. I'm curious still what Quinn's going to do with the center position game to game as the season starts. I don't know if there's a minutes restriction Onyeka's going to be dealing with or not. But that's going to be a really interesting thing. But I mean, I didn't really see anything that concerned me in those games. I just think it was constructive for them to face, really, really good defenses. The Kobe game, against Oklahoma City was really encouraging, for sure. He still it was weirdly was a couple times telegraphed a pass, made it kind of a pretty obvious pass that the defense kind of jumped, but that was two plays, maybe three. It wasn't like there was, eight, nine, 10 of those. But it's good to see him get some confidence. I know he'll miss some time here at the beginning of the regular season. But all in all, I mean, I thought they still showed they're committed to the new way of kind of moving the ball, cutting, using motion to create space and creating, high quality shots. And they stuck with that even against defenses that make it a little bit harder.
I feel like probably one of the bigger takeaways I had was that David Roddy looks like a real player in this league. Like maybe not somebody you want starting for your team, but as a ninth, 10th, even for the Hawks, he's going to be like the 11th, 12th man. But as somebody deep depth like that, like that's a good find for the Hawks. They kind of got him, out of a, swapping somebody, EJ Liddell, who probably he just didn't have a future with the Hawks. So like that's good to get another forward size player who can dribble pass. His shot looks okay, but it's not a strength of his, but just another smart basketball player who's good defensively, big, physical, and like will really come into play if there's injuries that the Hawks aren't completely toast in the forward wing room. Now that they have somebody even like beyond just beat. They got somebody like David Roddy, so that was good to see from him. But overall, uh, I just I didn't have anything really. It was good to see Kobe um, have that game. I thought against the Heat he was actually fine in the particularly after his first stint. I just think he was dealt a little bit of a bad hand against the Heat that first go around, just the players he was playing with. But he got better as the game went on along there when he found his rhythm as a driver, and he really, you know, attacked that against OKC as well. When I think smartly the Hawks or team saw an OKC team that only had one player taller than 6'7". They were like, we're gonna just attack the rim with everything we got, and then let's see if we can't break this team a bit. And I thought they did a pretty good job against the Thunder overall. So I mean, it's a good showing in preseason. Nothing too insightful. Unfortunately, Reese Shea didn't play, who's probably the guy we wanted to see most. So uh, that was a bummer. But I'm just can't wait till Wednesday because that's when the real thing starts.
My gut instinct is, and I don't think that this is a long-term thing, and it's not what I would advocate for, but I wouldn't be surprised if they use three centers Wednesday. Like, I think this is one of those rare instances where you do it because you're still trying to get Onyeka. He just needs the reps, like he needs the game speed reps, and he's probably still restricted a little bit. So I think it may happen in this game. I don't know. Maybe they'll play together a little bit, but I do think that we will see all three of Capella, Nance, and Okongwu Wednesday, even if that's not necessarily something that we'll see a lot of this season. Does that seem reasonable?
Maybe I'll just say like the Nets, considering their personnel, is
Right.
probably a type of game where like I I I would guess they would try to lean away from Capella just based on the matchup
Hmm.
of who the Nets have. Like they don't have this imposing center you have to worry about on the offensive glass, and the Hawks are bigger in the front court now with Reese Shea and Jalen and Dyson Daniels as well on the perimeter. Like that's I feel like this is one of those games where it's like you can lean into Nance more. I do think Okongwu's probably going to be on a minutes limit. Like he plays one preseason game, he only plays 11 minutes. There's probably going to be some more easing into the season until they figure out what they want to do long term. But I would be even with that, I wouldn't be totally surprised if Capella plays less than what you think,
Hmm.
and Okongwu plays a bit more. But there's a real possibility that Nance plays the most out of any of those guys in this first game. I just think
Yeah.
to me, with if you got three starting caliber centers, you know, yeah, who cares? Like Quinn should just go on the rotation based off the matchup. And like this seems like a prime, like we're gonna go five out on offense against this Nets team. And then we're not worried about like I mean, the only physical driver they have is Ben Simmons. And like I don't think the Hawks are gonna be too concerned about him driving to the rim. So like it's just I think matchup wise, I could see Capella having a lesser role than what you would think, but we'll see. We don't know anything.
Does Dennis Schroeder count as a driver?
I think he does.
I think he does.
You worried about Dennis Schroeder finishing with physicality?
Maybe
That's
not.
what I
Maybe,
that's what I
yeah, you,
mean.
you, you, yeah,
There's different levels
physicality
of like.
caveat. I mean,
Listen, there's
it's
when I'm saying driving, I'm saying like
yeah.
LeBron James, Giannis
Okay.
Antetokounmpo.
Okay.
I'm not talking about
Yeah.
Dennis Schroeder speed layupping. In fact, I probably would prefer Onyeka Okongwu so that he can completely erase that type of option from his game because he's not beating Okongwu to the rim. Schroeder isn't. So like
Well,
that's one of those things. I'm not basing my matchup of what Dennis Schroeder does or doesn't do. Like that's
Well, that's
also
fair.
another thing.
But Brooklyn
agreed.
just
Yeah,
felt like one of the most toothless driving teams last year, and I think Dennis helps them in that regard a fair bit.
yeah. And I mean, they ran so much offense through Bridges last year. It was interesting. A lot of curls, a lot of pin downs into curls, and I
Yeah.
mean, the Hawks could not figure the Hawks could not figure that stuff out for anything, And I mean, Dennis also dealt with Dyson, on Wednesday night, and that makes we've talked about it before. That makes everything behind Dyson easier, I mean, the center position will be easy because when Claxton's on the floor, I mean, Capella, if Quinn chooses to prioritize it, Capella could really eat on the offensive glass. Like Claxton's not the biggest, most physical guy. He's not a terrible rebounder or anything like that, but just that's one way he could go. But I do think that Claxton does have a little ability to handle and pass and DHO, and that gets your center defensively on the perimeter. And I like Nansen and Kongwu in that setting for sure. So it'll just be interesting to see what Quinn prioritizes at different points of the game. Dayron Sharp is the guy that I think is a fun young guy kind of coming along. He's more physical than Claxton, so maybe that's some minutes where like Nance makes sense. The veteran Nance is a veteran, kind of dealing with a little bit of that. So yeah, I'd be interesting to see how the center minutes kind of shake out. Do you think Veet has a bigger role with Kobe not playing? Do you think he plays like 18 minutes, something like that, with Kobe unavailable?
I think based on what happened with the preseason rotation, Beat went from not playing at all to probably just taking all of Kobe minutes, and maybe if he plays well, he gets a little bit more. But I I I actually, based on what I saw, like it's one of those things where I just think Reese Shea is going to play a lot more than what we initially thought, um, based on what he's done in the preseason. Dyson's going to play a lot. DeAndre's going to get his starter or near starter level minutes as well. So like I think the only avenue where Beat was going to play was at the point guard position over Kobe. And with Kobe out, I think Beat's just going to take those 12 to 14 minutes that Trey's not on the floor. Like I could see V and Trey just not share the floor at all. He just takes Kobe. What Quinn had Kobe doing, Beach just gonna do that.
Yeah, I think even if Kobe was healthy and if Kobe was playing, I still think they would have found a way to get Veet out. I don't think that they were necessarily just going to tell Kobe that he wasn't going to play before he got hurt. But I do think that Veet was still going to have a role. Like, I still think that he was like the training wheels for Kobe or whatever after, uh, until he got more comfortable. Like, it just worked better with Veet out there than without. To just have Kobe going solo there
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
some
V's ability to play on the
non-passing
catch.
players, it
Yeah.
just really wasn't working. I think they saw that. So I think Veet takes over. I think he'll be out there a lot with Dyson. Um, but I do think that he will be the primary ball handler in the non-Trey minutes.
Yeah, there might be Bogey's going to be out there as well, most almost certainly.
Oh
Every
yeah.
minute Trey's not going to be on the floor as well. So just to give them an offensive focal point uh, for them to play off of. But yeah, that makes sense. It's going to be it just sucks for Kobe because once again he's getting off to a false start to his career. Like I felt like his rookie year he was never able to get a footing because of just a variety of injuries, and now it's another shoulder injury to the same shoulder. That's not great. So hopefully we'll learn more tomorrow. But yeah, it's tough for Kobe's career because I see the talent with them, but it's just hard if you're not playing on the floor and establishing yourself in the league.
He, one of the things that he told me last week was that he was starting this season 10 pounds heavier compared to last season. Said that he thought it was going to help him be more physical, especially defensively, to carry that extra muscle weight. So, he said he started last season at 182. He started this season at 192, but it doesn't entirely free you from the risk of injury. Maybe it will help at some point, but it's still early. It's just still so early for his career that I you know think we even saw a little bit with Jalen. Like there was first couple of years, a lot of inconsistency, a lot of injuries, things like that that just kind of sidetrack you, and it just happens to these. They're young, they're so young, they're so painfully young. That it just takes a while to get a little older and a little more durable.
And to learn how to manage your body. Like, the NBA season is a completely different thing than any of these guys ever faced at any other level, right? Just that the length of it, how many games a week they're playing, the physical toll, even guys who play the backup role, the physical toll, young guys. It's a big adjustment to learn how to manage your body like that. It's funny for me. It's like when I watch Kobe play, sometimes I'm like, and this is just me uh just putting words out almost in kind of real time. He doesn't look like the most limber guy, right? I mean, he plays a little hunched. His posture's a little hunched. And I don't think that automatically kind of makes him. I don't want to say that makes me think he's injury prone or whatever, but he just doesn't look like a guy that has a super flexible body. The way he plays. So hopefully that's. I mean, the Hawks have real professional, training staff and all that sort of stuff, and I'm sure that they know, what they need to kind of work on if there is something to that, But he just looks different, to me in that way.
I mean, that might be it, or it could be random. I think it's just more
I think it's
like I don't know. Shoulder injuries in particular, like he could have just took a bad hit and tore something. Hopefully not, but labrum tears do happen. They just basketball players play through it more often than what people think. So it is his right shoulder, I think. So
Yes.
yeah, so we'll see. There might be to something he's going to have to change a bit of how he plays a little, maybe, or it could just be like the trials of being a young player in the NBA. 195, while it's big for him, it's still like below average for an NBA player. Like a lot of these guys around the 200 to 15, 215, 230 plus range as NBA players are. So he is at a physical size deficit. And really the way he plays as well, like he's a super physical driver on offense, super physical on defense. Like there are some things where he may need to like the point you're making, Glenn, there might be some adjustments he's going to have to make, maybe, but I think it's a little too early to tell all that. I just, I'm kind of hoping it's not too serious, but we don't know what their original shoulder injury was in the summer. That's the downside about sports leagues. Like they don't really tell us what the injuries actually are, so we're just speculating. This could be something he's been dealing with for a longer time than what we think, but we won't know until hopefully the next couple days.
Speaking of which, I didn't see Dominic Barlow after practice today. Didn't look like he was out there shooting. He oh, I don't know, maybe 10 days ago was playing in a 4-on-4 scrimmage, and I think uh I think he gave like a little head and shoulders fake when he had the ball on offense under the rim and faked Kevon Harris, and Harris went up, started coming down, and Barlow went up, and then that kind of collision, Barlow was on the bottom end of it, and I think he fell and hit his tailbone, and he was down for a couple of minutes. And uh, last week they were talking like he might return soon, but I didn't see him today, so it'll be interesting to see. We finally get some real injury reports starting tomorrow at 5 o'clock. So we'll have to see how
I'm ready
what
for the
his
season to
status
get
is.
going.
What's that?
I'm ready for the season to get going. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I think it's
What
gonna be a
what are you
fun year.
expecting from the NBA as a whole? Do you have a
Yeah, I mean,
preseason favorite?
when I look out west, it's really kind of hard to figure out kind of what's going on out there. Like, will the Timberwolves be better without Towns, right? Dallas added Clay. Does that help them? They got a few other guys are going to help them, help them too. But like Hawks fans are rooting for the Lakers to do poorly. Are there other teams that are surprised? Like, what are the Suns going to do under Bud? Like that to me, that is a maybe the most interesting team to watch the first month of the season is the Suns. With Bud. So out west, to me, it's like it's hard for me to kind of pick a team that I feel like is like head and shoulders better than everybody else. You know, um, in the East, I think everybody's chasing Boston. We'll see how good Philly is. We'll see if Doc can do something different with the Bucks. I feel like that's probably not a likely outcome. I think they're gonna be kind of, 5 to 7 games back at the top of the East, like most of the season, kind of chasing that. And then everybody, when I kind of read I don't really do much of it. When something comes across my Twitter feed, whatever, a national report, everybody has very high expectations for the Knicks, like really, really high expectations for the Knicks, and I don't necessarily share that. I mean, Brunson had a phenomenal year last year, but they still are just a little bit of a weird team. I think they're only carrying 12 guys on the roster to start the
Yeah,
season. You
the
know,
Knicks, the Knicks, like I didn't realize how much depth they lost,
yeah,
and I feel like that was their strength these last couple seasons. Of they lose somebody, the next man up worked for them. Now they were never. I don't think they were as good as what their record was last year overall, but I do think like to me, like just looking out, like I think Hartenstein was like the like more of a drink stirrer than what people realize, and they're going to really miss him, even though they got Karl Anthony Towns. It was a good like
Yeah.
I think they salvaged the position, but they still lost a lot with Hartenstein that they're not getting back
Yep.
with Carl Towns. And then on top of that, their big strength was being able to go 48 minutes at the center position. They, it's like,
It's bad.
is Tibbs going to play Towns 38 minutes a night to start the season? Because they have nothing behind him. They
Yeah.
have nothing but and they have nothing behind their forwards now. It's I feel like it's just owning Anunoby and Bridges. They're gonna play 40 minutes every night. Like Tibbs will do that. So
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I the Dante DiVincenzo like that's a bigger loss than what people realize. He's become a really really good basketball player. Um, and like I think he's gonna help the Timberwolves a lot more than what people think. And I think his loss is really going to be impactful for the Knicks. Like you just don't replace that level of volume shooting from three from a team. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think they did. And so like I just think they're going to be like Towns going to make up for some of it, but they're just going to be less dynamic. Like for as great as shooter Towns is at the five position, he's not what he will never be what DiVincenzo was, which is flying off the screens, shooting 3 pointers, like that movement shooting, that just getting threes up in bulk and
Yep.
Yeah.
for your star guys. Like that's not something Towns is going to be able to do.
And
Replicate.
he's a good point guard defender too. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
so that's a big miss. It's funny. I've like Dallas is a team that like has me like are they going to play Clay and Dinwiddie together? Like that is rough defensively. That's really they got Grimes. It's like are Clay and Dinwiddie going to play like way more minutes? Grimes is a good defender. And it's just going to be really interesting to see how Jason Kidd kind of deals with you know that aspect of the roster. They went kind of name recognition, you know, and established guys and stuff like that. But I don't know how much they've actually improved the roster. So that's going to be
Well, they
interesting.
got
Then in the
Najee
East,
Marshall. I'm not counting him out.
yeah, but like, will they lean into the guys who can defend, or will they, politics or whatever word you want to use? Will they, give Clay and Dinwiddie a lot of minutes when maybe that's not the best path to winning games this year?
Yeah, it might not be the
Kid,
best fit.
kid. I'll give this to Jason Kidd as a coach. Like he doesn't do the politic game. If he finds something that doesn't work, he will just kill it early. Um, in his rotation. He's done that a couple of times in Dallas, and it's like irked some of the players, but I think he's going to do what he thinks is best for the team to win. But they are going to have to manage Clay because Clay's just defensively isn't the player he used to be. That's really the issue with Clay Thompson now as a player. He's really more of just a one-way player. He has some value uh, as a big wing defender, but it's not at his prime, like his value was being able to guard guards, and he just can't physically do that anymore. So the Mavericks are going to be. I mean, the West is just. I mean, it's chock full of like teams. I thought going into Thunder might had a chance to run away with it, but Hartenstein injury kind of they're really small. Like that's the thing I took away from Greece's game. Like that's a super small team, and without Hartenstein, I think they're actually going to struggle more. But they're still going to be pretty good. Out east, I think the biggest takeaway is like the Celtics without Porzingis are vulnerable. Uh, but hope if Tatum's 3 point shooting regresses back to what it usually is, they should be okay. But like without Porzingis, they're simply they're not like the overwhelming dominant team they were last year without him. They have ways to replace him, but like they're going to need if they're going to repeat as championships, they're going to need Porzingis healthy.
Yeah.
Uh, but in the Eastern Conference, like I'm not seeing any team that's going to challenge them for the 1 seed at the moment. Like
Yeah, it
they
just
think
doesn't make that's how I feel. Like I just feel like
yeah,
Boston is so far ahead of everybody else
Yeah.
in the East. I don't trust Philadelphia. I don't trust Milwaukee. Orlando, like where is the shooting going to be? There's just
And
so
point
many
guard play.
teams in the East that
Yeah, the
I
point
just
guard play,
who's that?
the point guard
Orlando's
play,
point guard play is bad.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's just
But like Boston,
And then,
like on paper, should be absolutely great. Like they have enough things that they can triage whatever they need to string together until Porzingis gets back. But like it's just to me, it's just hard to go to the finals one year and lose, go to the finals the next year and win, do all the celebration, you know, send guys to the Olympics, um, send guys to Abu Dhabi for preseason. Like they didn't even have an off season. Like it was just a blur. Like
yeah,
that to me is just red flag. Like um in an abstraction, it's just Boston, but like that's not how it works. Like it just seems like something is going to happen where um they're just going to be fighting it, whether it's an injury in the middle of the season, just mental fatigue, physical fatigue when they get to the second round of the playoffs and the wrong opponent strikes in the wrong way in games 1 and 2. Like it's just something to me is going to happen. I just don't know where it's going to come from. It's why, it just the East feels wide open. And I think it's one reason to be optimistic about the Hawks, but I don't know, like Cleveland, like I feel like I've believed in them too long, but like they've got some consistency, they've got some talent. I don't know. I just feel like it's open enough for a team like Cleveland to really make some noise because to me it's Boston and everyone else and Boston is great but also vulnerable. So like I just feel like it could be anybody.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Boston is very prescriptive in their offensive approach, right?
Yep.
And they really stick with that. And sometimes that's at the macro level that served them well last year. Obviously, you see the results, right? But a certain defense who says we're not going to let you do these two things that you want to do all the time. We're gonna figure out how to not let you do those two things. Do they have a counter? Do they have something else that they are confident they can adjust to offensively if that gets taken away? And then I mean, Pacers fans would be like, "What about us?" I mean, they're just a weird team. Like, they got some guys who can really defend, like Nimhard. I love Nimhard, right? They have other guys, and they have some young guys like you know, that are kind of coming along. I mean, I enjoy Ben Shepherd, but they're just a weird team. So yeah, it's kind of wide open in both conferences apart from Celtics.
All right. Well, we could talk more general NBA in the near future and I guess for now, good night, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
good night, Bob.